Hello, folks. Welcome to the Technocrats. Today, we are kicking off the first episode of a trio podcast series on precision medicine, where we explore the development and delivery of innovative treatments in the transformative field. In recent years, the life sciences landscape has undergone a remarkable transformation through precision medicine. Yet, this transformation presents complex challenges. Shockingly, chronic diseases still contribute to over 70% of global deaths. Precision medicine has the potential to revolutionize treatment and prevention, but it also raises questions about accessibility, affordability, and ethics. To guide us on this journey, we have the distinguished guest, Barry Blauvelt, the CEO of Innovara, a global organizational development firm specializing in talent development within healthcare and life sciences. Barry's extensive expertise spans the healthcare spectrum, encompassing areas like commercialization, medical affairs, and healthcare policy research, with a particular focus on cancer control strategies. With a specific interest in oncology, diabetes, metabolic diseases, infectious diseases, and rare conditions. So, without further ado, let's welcome Barry.
How are you doing today?
Great. How are you doing, Deepak?
I'm doing great. I know, Barry, the precision medicine is near to your heart, and your work actually has been in this area and all your life in life sciences. For our audiences who are actually trying to bring precision medicines for patients globally, what, in your opinion, are the critical steps to develop and deliver precision medicines?
I'll speak to the money side of this in a moment, but if you have a new technology, a new medicine, a new drug, I'm going to surprise you and the audience, I think, when I tell you my first screen is going to be their intellectual property. Why do I mention that? If by the time you bring your innovation to market, your products don't have the kind of intellectual property protections they need, you could be out of the market before you're even in the market. And you have to make sure that your position, that you'll be able to access and bring the product to market and not be turned around and be sued by a company for patent infringement. And so I tell them the first thing I want is IP due diligence. Most recently, I was looking at a company, incredible product. It was a company out of Japan, and they really hadn't had the kind of global experience that they should have. And they had not adequately protected their intellectual property, and they're ready to start clinical research in the USA without securing their know-how and internationally. And I had to say on behalf of my global clients, we can't touch you because it's too late for us. You filed for a patent in Japan and the US, fine, but you've missed the rest of the world. And that opens the floodgates for competition to, look at what you've done, how you've engineered it, maybe reverse engineer it. And next thing you know, you're competing against yourself to bring that new technology to market. So make sure your IP is bulletproof. That's the first advice. The second advice, of course, is your financial strategy. You have to really assess where is your revenue going to come from, and then what stage of your development through launch and post-launch until peak sales, are you going to have a financial strategy that will carry you all of that way? So typically in life sciences, we're dealing with, a startup company or a company with a platform from which they're beginning to develop products or assets, if not the platform itself. And they're going to need a series of funding. And it's going to get bigger and bigger the closer they come to market, because mainly of the ballooning cost of phase 3 trials. So in precision medicines, you may think, oh, but it's not going to be as expensive as, a new cardiovascular drug for reducing clots, reducing stroke, or, taking care of diabetes. But in cell and gene therapies, maybe you're only going to have 10 to 40 patients in a particular trial, and that will be it. In oncology with certain tumors, again, you're not going to be doing tens of thousands as you would in some of the more primary care fields. but you still need the money and you still need the runway. And so you have to make sure that you've planned your financing rounds in the proper way to not get too much capital in the beginning, blow through that, and then your valuation is low going into a future series. But really figure out exactly how much do we need, when do we need it by, and then ultimately what's that return on investment going to be for my company on this innovation.
How do you think about the scalability and the clinical research?
That's where precision medicine, we were talking earlier, if you came from big pharma, you come from big pharma, the model that we have for big pharma is really driven by scalability and efficiency. So once we get that vaccine production capability, how fast can we roll our vaccine out to a global market, and how fast can we get scalability to realize lower and lower costs relative to price? It's completely different in precision medicine. The other thing that's so different is product life cycle. In big pharma, we think about our product life cycle as the end, up to the end of, and maybe a little bit beyond the end of our patent life. In the case of orphan drugs or rare diseases or other precision medicines, we may have a 20, 30-year patent protection, but our viability in the market may only be 3 to 5 years. And so we have to understand that, because of someone inventing a new stem cell therapy or a new T cell therapy or a new gene editing therapy that will replace what I thought was the next best thing in precision medicine. And then, of course, scalability is a big problem, because whereas in big pharma, we're looking at all patients count, we're looking at market share. In precision medicine, each patient counts, and market share takes on very, very different proportions, particularly if you're in rare and ultra rare diseases. I mean, a rare disease, you'd be lucky to find 10 to 12,000 patients a year around the world on your drug. So we don't really think about scalability. However, we do think about reproducibility and to try to get some efficiencies. Everybody says, look at these new drugs, they're getting, prices of 2.5 and $3 million. And imagine, what we could do with that. Well, think about how many people are involved in that gene editing product. Think about, how labor intensive it is. So what we're trying to do with precision medicines is make them more automated, go from autologous, which is each patient, to allogenic. We can use genes that will work in everybody, or we'll use cells that can work in everybody, and so we don't have to necessarily worry about each person being their own donor. And that's going to be very critical. So we're looking at allogeneic therapies. We're looking at basically scalability of stem therapies and what we call pluripotent stem cells that can be then adapted for use in different diseases. And so even the sciences and technologies are so rapidly emerging that it's hard to get scalability. And so we have to look at our economic models accordingly. Otherwise, we wouldn't do any of this.
And with the scalability also comes actually the providers, the support system as well, and how
Absolutely.
you can train them. So what are your thoughts, like as an entrepreneur trying to bring the precision medicine? Is there any thought or a clue or things to watch for you can suggest?
Well, I think it's really important, since we're talking about global medicine, and I'll go back to scalability. You have to know really where the patients are, and you have to be able to develop partnerships, because it's so precise. You need to make sure that you don't have the time it's not one formula fits all. There's cultural, there's political, there's geopolitical considerations. And you have to really take all of that into consideration. So your best bet in terms of expansion and scalability is going to be probably not to try to do it yourself, but to partner with a company that has the kind of life science ecosystem established that will help you to do that. That leads me to the capability development. Each one of these precision medicines requires some unique capabilities. It may require academics, what are called CDMOs, contract clinical development and manufacturing organizations that can produce these, one patient at a time therapies. And those may not exist in the different countries of the world. In fact, are unlikely to. And so you have to think about, do I have to always be sending these samples, my blood, to US or Germany or France or China for processing and then shipped all the way back? Because the more you have to ship, the more you have to handle these products, the more they're in transit, the more jeopardy to them. So the going back to global capability development, and this is where we as a company are very focused, as you noted, with our talent development initiatives. You have to make sure that providers know how to administer these drugs. You have to know that the centers, if they're academic, they may need academic CDMOs as well if they want to take part in doing some basic research. They have to know how to handle these products, the technicians, the nurses, the patient support managers. And then another challenge for capability, speaking of patient support, is advocacy is fairly well developed in some disease areas, but not developed at all in others, particularly certain rare and ultra-rare diseases. So, you have to think about what kind of patient support is needed. Where precision medicine patient support becomes critical, let's take the US FDA example. They will require every patient that is put on a clinical trial, let's assume the drug makes it through and gets approved, the therapy. You have to continue monitoring that patient for durability of your therapy between 5 to 13 years, depending on what kind of technology it is. Now, here's the conundrum. Let's take the US FDA. FDA says, we want clinical research to be global. What does that really mean? And when you say we want research to be global, where does that mean we draw the patients from? What they don't mean is go to Europe and give us more Caucasians. What they're really talking about, as set up by the US President's Cancer Report from 2011, is that you try to go to countries of ethnic origin so you can see how these drugs are likely to work based on the diverse population of America, to complement and ensure that these drugs are going to be predictably effective in non-white populations in the US because of the difficulties we have in recruiting Hispanic, Asian, African American, and other ethnicities into research in the USA. So going global, you really also have to think of, well, how many patients should be recruited internationally, and do those sites have the capability of monitoring and administering these new drugs and monitoring them effectively, following the protocol, etc. So yes, talent development is probably must go hand in hand. You must think about what scientific and other capabilities are needed for your product to be successful in a global marketplace.
That sounds great. This basically really tells me the steps and the challenges which comes with those steps, designing, developing, and delivering these precision medicine. The IP comes, the financial strategy, and how these two are actually going to play in the competitive advantage, in addition to the scalability and how we build the ecosystem or train.
And your comment reminds me of another thing that we really have to think about, which is when a company, I'm just going to use sort of US origin, but could be France, could be Germany, or Japan, the big ones. When we're anticipating launch, a lot of effort is going into preparing what I'll call the mother country, the country of origin, to prepare to bring it to market. And that preparation work begins with the very first clinical study, all the way through medical affairs, educating medical thought leaders to educate other doctors, et cetera, et cetera. There's a whole ripple and cascade effect that has to happen. Guidelines have to be evaluated and what would need to be changed once you're approved in order to be able to allow our practitioners to justify using your drugs, etc. It's a lot of preparatory work to make that launch year robust as possible. And IQVIA and McKinsey and everybody else, I mean, it's been well proven that how you do in the first year of your launch and globally how you do in your first 2 years of a launch will predict the future success of your drug. And so you really want to make sure you do everything right. What I so often see in global is that the other countries that are going to follow, let's say US, mother country registration, they are not given the kind of support that is needed to do that very same market shaping and market preparation work that is needed to bring that product to market. America becomes very arrogant, thinking, well, if we become number one in America, that will be it. And yes, it will be very, very helpful, but it's not the only solution. And what's worse is that you could harm your success by not preparing the markets because, especially in precision medicines, they're used imprecisely. Then in real world evidence, you're going to start to see problems that you never anticipated when you were under controlled clinical research.
Thank you, Barry. In this first episode of the Technocrats podcast series on precision medicine, Barry has provided invaluable insights into the critical steps necessary for the success of innovative treatments, especially because the journey toward precision medicine breakthroughs demand careful planning and execution. As we venture further into the realm of precision medicine, it is clear that ensuring global access remains a formidable challenge. Barry experts' guidance serve as a beacon, offering a well-structured path to navigate this dynamic landscape, and inspiring us all to drive innovation and equitable access in the world of healthcare. Stay tuned for our next episode of the Technocrats, where we dive deep into the strategies for advancing precision medicine, its accessibility and adoption, unraveling the intricacies that drive innovation and impact in this transformative field. Till then, stay curious.